My name is Adrian Nantchev, and this channel is all about helping you become a remarkable entrepreneur. So today I'm joined with Udochi on the Become Remarkable podcast, where I bring you people from around the world doing remarkable things in their life, whether entrepreneurs or not, to talk about who they are, what they believe in, and what difference they're making in the world. So please, Udochi, tell the audience, explain to the world, who are you, what do you believe, what is your story, and what difference are you making in the world?
Hi. Like you said, I'm Udochi. I'm the founder of Wudo.com and Nkamuta.com. I'm a first-generation American-born Igbo. My parents were both born in Nigeria. I'm a graduate of Rochester Institute of Technology in Rochester, New York. My degree was in clinical psychology, so I speak in terms of neuroscience a lot. I'm a software developer also. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been starting businesses since 2011. I think the first kind of business that took off was a nonprofit with my brother that was an Igbo language course called Express Igbo, that we started here in DC. Washington, D.C. in the United States. We incorporated it into a 501c3 nonprofit which has the mission statement, which is to preserve and promote the Igbo language. I think I mentioned that the Igbo is a Nigerian, is a ethnic group in Nigeria, and Igbo is also the language that they speak. Since then, I've moved on from that. Now, Express Igbo is still going strong under the care of my brother, but now I'm mostly focused on my own two companies, Wudo.com and Nkamuta.com. Wudo.com is about encouraging Africans to read, write, and do business in their native languages, and I consider Nkamuta.com to be an extension of Wudo.com. Nkamuta.com is a bounty site that seeks to crowdsource Igbo translations of academic information by offering prize money for the best translations. So 2 weeks ago, we were giving away $40 to the person who could best translate Newton's second law of motion into the Igbo language, which was awesome. We got a really great video from this one guy in Nigeria. He submitted a video that on my YouTube channel, I called it a Bill Nye the Science Guy type style video, because he did this really creative video explaining Newton's second law of motion in Igbo language, where he took some tools and he really did a whole demonstration, and it was just phenomenal. So on to your next question, which is, what do I believe in? I believe in sanity. I believe in peace. I believe sanity is peace of mind. I believe that way too many people live lives of quiet desperation, and I believe that that's a terrible thing. I believe that too many people go to work day to day, day in and day out, waiting for the clock to run out. So they go home and sit on the couch and numb out with food, alcohol, mindless screen time, and sex and whatever. I believe that nobody is living anymore. Well, not nobody. I think there's people who are living. I think Richard Branson, for example, is living. I believe that there are people who are living the life that they want to live. But I believe the majority of people on this planet are not living the lives that they want to live. And I believe that a lot of people are being lied to. I believe we're in the best time in history, and not enough people are talking about it. I believe that not enough people are talking about why we're living in the best time in history. I think the truth is that everything we need for happiness is right at our fingertips, and the life of quiet desperation I was talking about, well, we all suffer from it. I believe that Africans and Black people, which is my kind of demographic, are some of the worst sufferers of this kind of quiet desperation situation. And then we blame each other. We blame, Blacks blame whites, whites blame Blacks, situation. We fight each other over it. We fight each other over thinking that the other person is the one that needs to liberate us somehow. But really the truth is that it's all on us to liberate ourselves. It's like that Marianne Williamson quote, which says, when we liberate ourselves, then just by observing us being liberated, we unconsciously liberate others. So, which is, in my opinion, extremely awesome. So what I mean is that people work jobs that they hate because they think that they have to. Then they complain about it, and then they tell others, like their wives, their kids, and their friends, that they have to as well. And then they shoot down their dreams and they tell them that they're crazy. And then the cycle of quiet desperation continues. The cycle of misery continues. People act like they don't know why they are unhappy, and everyone is trying to fit into someone else's box. So that's the kind of my manifesto of what I believe. So your next question, which is what is my story, is, can you tell that I watched your podcast before and I kind of thought about these questions ahead of time? Um, so my story. Okay. So, in 11th grade, I told my dad that I wanted to study psychology. And I think that the reason I wanted to study psychology at the time was based off of a book I read. I think the book was about hypnosis or something. So I had no idea what the heck I was talking about. I think the hypnosis situation thing was about, like, I thought that it was like mind control or something. I think I thought psychology was mind control somehow. I remember when I told him that I was in Nigeria, and because I was sent to, I don't know if I mentioned this, I was in Nigeria in boarding school when I was 13. And I think I was like 16 or so at the time. And I told my dad I wanted to study psychology. And he told me psychology is not a science. He told me that I had to study a science. So, so when I finally went to college, my major was undeclared science. So I was going to pretty much explore, the sciences until I figured out which science I was going to study, which one I liked. And so, unfortunately, in my sophomore year of college, my father passed away, and I was going to become pre-med, and, but I was failing organic chemistry, and I took a introduction to psychology course, and I fell in love because I realized that there was science in psychology, in like the neuroscience aspect of psychology. There was like neuroimaging and stuff like that I really liked. So I ended up declaring my major to be psychology. Unfortunately, my father had passed at that time and everything. And so there was always a part of me that wondered, but anyway, this is not a therapy session. So, I studied psychology instead. And, so yeah, I studied psychology. I did well, ended up, graduating with my bachelor's in clinical psychology. But see, the problem is that I didn't even realize that at the time, I was still kind of chasing someone else's dream. That whole psychology thing was kind of a mirage also. It was not really what I thought it was, and it wasn't really even what I wanted it to be. So, I think I was still living in a box that I had manufactured for myself. I was thinking that I was going to become Dr. Phil or something. I don't know. But, I look at my old journals from that period of time and what I had written down about what I wanted to be. I was into all that kind of stuff about like manifesting and, the law of attraction and stuff like that at the time. And this is when I was in college or just coming out of college. And, I had written down my dreams and I written down my visions and stuff like that. And even today, I look back at like old vision boards and things, and I realized that those dreams that I had were not necessarily truly coming out of a place, because it was like, and that when you're saying one thing and you're doing another, it's a thing called cognitive dissonance. You're saying one thing, and in your heart of hearts, it's not really what it is, that you're not really living what you're saying that you're living. And so many of us, like, we don't even realize it. So many of us are living that every single day. So, anyway, long story short, it's not long story short, but basically I was severely depressed, and I didn't realize it until later on when I was diagnosed as severely clinically depressed. And, I was clinically depressed. But I still was pursuing school. I tried to go back to school 3 times, dropped out every single time, tried to do pre-med. I had my degree in clinical psychology. I tried to go back for pre-med, surgical technology and computer engineering. So it's like, I just kept chasing my dragon. I just kept chasing it. And, it wasn't until, and then I also went from job to job, all these dead end jobs. And, And then finally, I decided to try entrepreneurship in 2011. And I enjoyed it, but I kept going back to the old cycle of trying to get a regular job. It was just like I kept feeling like I had to, like it was the thing I was supposed to do. And also, I never felt confident enough to talk to my family and tell them, "Hey, this is what I in my heart want to do." Like it was always that feeling of, you know, they're going to say something. And they did, but I never stood up for myself or moved out or said, you know, this is the direction I'm going in. It was just like, you know, it just never felt right. So for some reason, I don't know if that makes sense. Okay, it makes sense. So, but now I finally went all in recently, and I dance every morning. Literally, I dance every morning. I'm extremely productive. I'm doing what I love. I don't make as much money as when I was a software developer, which I haven't mentioned yet, but I was a software developer. I am a software developer, actually, still building websites for people sometimes, and, you know, different things like that. Um, but, you know, I'm working towards making the same amount of money that I was making as a software developer and more. That's still something that is an aspiration of mine, but I'm okay doing it in this particular way, not in the way that someone else tells me to do, where I am living that life of quiet desperation, but in a way that it makes me happy, that I'm enjoying, and that I'm getting to with patience, perseverance, and joy, you know, with peace of mind that I originally said that I would do. And your last question is, what difference do I want to see in the world, if I may? Um, so the difference I want to see in the world, basically, I want to see more people doing what they love, like I have the blessed opportunity to do, and being who they are. You know, particularly the people in my demographic, which I said before are Africans. I mostly work with Africans and Black people. So there's this amazing talk. Let me speak specifically to. There's this amazing talk by TED Talk by an Igbo woman. Her name is Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, called "The Danger of a Single Story." I don't know if you've heard of this. She is an amazing speaker. She's an author. She wrote this book called Half a Yellow Sun, another book called Americana. She's a very prolific writer. She talks about how, you know, the dominant culture, you know, has the benefit of having the luxury of a variety of stories told about them all the time. Like they always have a variety of stories told about them, but the so-called minorities groups often have are often spoken of in a limited light. So she talks there about why this is a problem, especially when you see, for example, Black Americans grow up with a hip hop culture believing that their destiny is jail time or street violence, and they live it out due to social pressures and identity issues, or Africans who see themselves as the underdogs or needy or deprived. And I think there's enough abundance to go around. I honestly do. And I want everyone to see that. That's kind of one of my mission statements in life. I want Africans and Black people to own who they are, to no matter who that is, own the way they talk or choose to talk, no matter what language they grew up speaking or where they grew up living. You know, there's a great poem by Tupac called "A Rose from Concrete" that I read when I was in seventh grade. Just the image of a rose growing in concrete. I mean, it's like thinking about something beautiful growing in a place where you don't expect beauty to thrive. Far like I mean, I just think about like my cousins and people that I know, like just far too many, you know, Africans want to escape Africa, or far too many Black people and wanted to rush and escape their domiciles to go where the white people are. I mean, like this, I mean, there's some people who are just not comfortable with that type of language, but I just have to be like, I'm not PC in that type of way. I just kind of say what it is. But there's just a lot of people who just want to escape where they are and go to where they think is better. But honestly, what I want to see is that I want I want us to see that we have everything we need right where we are, and we can essentially grow roses in the concrete if we wanted to. I think there are a lot of people invested in convincing people, not just us, that we are not enough, that we are incomplete, that we are inadequate, and it is literally killing us. So there's my manifesto for you. um, yeah. Any other questions?
Well, that's a lot to go off by. That's pretty cool. First of all, I'm so sorry to hear about your father.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That was like 2002, so it's been a while.
Oh, right. I lost my mother in 2010.
Oh, wow. I'm so sorry to hear that.
That's all right. There's a lot. That's a lot of cool stuff going off there. I just want to clarify though. Newton's second law of motion. That's the cause and effect one, isn't it? For every action, there's opposite reaction, isn't it?
No, Newton's second law of motion, that's Newton's second law of thermodynamics, isn't it? I think Newton's second law of motion is force equals mass times acceleration. Not that I
Oh
think. That is
yes,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
In 17th century his book, the Principia Mathematica. Yeah, because that equation ultimately led to the Industrial Revolution. I remember reading somewhere. But yeah, there. Yes, yeah. That's all I know about that one. But that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Must include a link to that later on. That sounds like a fascinating little video. Won't understand any of it, but
Yeah.
it sounds fascinating.
Yeah, I
What?
mean, it was a really interesting experience because um, I don't like prior to this I didn't have a lot of connection to a lot of Igbo people, Igbo like scholars as much as I do. Even now, I don't think I have that many, but like it was really difficult to find people who could like speak like scientists and Igbo people. But now I think I'm going to try to make more of an effort to seek these guys out because I think that's helpful to my brand, to what I'm trying to do. Anyway,
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Because you talked a lot about the quiet desperation. Who was it who
mhm.
said that, by the way? I want to say Thoreau, but who? That's a quote from someone.
That is definitely a quote from someone. If you find out, let me know. I don't know. I know that that is definitely like a great author's quote, and it may be Thoreau. I don't know. I just know that it's a great author's quote. It's not me.
I'm thinking either it's Peter Drucker. He's more of he's a contemporary today, like in business management, or it's Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher. I'm not too sure who said it, but the quote goes something along the lines of like people in the world live in quiet desperation. Um, they have no hope and they do nothing and so I can't remember it all, but yeah, I quote that one quite often as well because you talk about it later on. You talk about it a lot actually. That's the reason why I started this channel, because I think that a lot of people in the world are not living their potential. And it's like, well, let's go out in the world and change that. All the stuff I know, let's do it justice, share it with the world. Let's teach people the things I know. Because you also alluded to like a self-fulfilling prophecy, where you said that the stories in the culture is what people do, and that's what happens. That's what enacted, in their lives. So you mentioned these people that they thought that growing up, the only thing they were destined for was I wrote it down, was for just jail or not to achieve much in
Or
life.
street violence.
Big pardon?
Yeah. Yeah, or street violence.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
so
it's about
so
breaking that
that
cycle.
yeah, so essentially what I'm saying there is that okay, so with that life of quiet desperation which I'm talking about is there, because I talked about it being also a social, like there's social pressures as well as identity issues. So there's people who actually like, and there's the cognitive dissonance aspect of it. Like there's people out there who there's something that you're born with. I really believe that. I have a nephew. He's so adorable. He's like less than 2 years old, and he runs around and he has a personality. You can see it shining in his eyes. When he dances, like who knows? He dances. He has joy in his eyes, but you just know that when the world beats him down, all that joy in his eyes, that random dancing is going to somehow fade away. I don't know where it's going to go, but I don't see people dancing like that little 2-year old that I see dancing right now. Um, you don't see people dancing like he does. You don't see people with the joy in his eyes that he does, that's always smiling. So what happens between that 2-year-old and, a 33-year-old like myself? What happens in that gap of time? And what happens is that the world sucks all that joy out of you. It's very rare to see someone my age with that same type of joy. And so what my point is that the gap between the childhood joy and the quiet desperation, somewhere in the middle, we lose that identity. We lose that identity of who we are. And so when the world tells you who you're supposed to be, um, when your world tells you who you're supposed to be and you forget that thing that you were born with, that thing that made you happy. There's this guy, say what you will about him, this guy, Ty Lopez. I learned a lot from him before he turned into a huge, I don't want to malign him, but I think that later on he kind of started drinking his own Kool-Aid. But there's this guy, Ty Lopez, who was a social media sensation, and but when he first started out, I was watching his 67 steps. I got his 67 steps course, and one of the things I learned from him was that there is there's a stage in your life where you can literally figure out what it is that you love to do. And it's like, what did you love to do when you were 14 years old? What do people say about you? What do people say that you really like to do? Like, what do people say that you're really good at? And like, there's certain criteria that you'll know that this is your piece. This is your niche. This is uniquely you. And I think when people find that thing that's uniquely them, and then they literally like take that and drive it home, when you can find that thing that's really you. And it's not one of those things where it's just like, oh, I really like to go bass fishing, and then you just like, can I make a career out of bass fishing? But it's like something that is like, what did you want to do when you were 14? What do people say about you? And what do you feel like you can do and you just could do, and the time will just pass and you never stop doing it? Then, when you can find that little perfect, and you can make money off of it and stuff, then I don't know. There's a way to discover those things.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. A few years ago, Ty Lopez had some really good content online. He would do live broadcasts for hours and hours, and he would talk about a lot of cool stuff. And behind me over here, I got some of the original notes from back in late 2014, early 2015. He was really good back then. I bought the 67 Steps as well, learned a lot. He changed my life. He changed my life, and a few other people did as well in their own way. Now, you talk about this thing, if you were age 14, yeah, I remember that, but looking back, when I was 14, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I think, okay, maybe just me, or maybe just a low success rate. However, what I now have learned, and I elaborate on that principle, is a thing that I call the perfect you. In ancient Greek philosophy, I can't remember who it is, Aristotle, they had this concept called the golden mean, and it's essentially saying not too hot and not too cold, not too far, not too close. And the golden mean is represented in 1.618. And I think that's the start of the Fibonacci spiral. I don't think it is, so that's 1 and 3 and 5 and all the rest. But however, the golden mean, it talks about how eventually you will revert to, like a balance, the equilibrium. You will eventually become the person who you are. Your genes or genetics or hereditary or whatever it may be, nature, nurture, who knows, that you will eventually be based on something. Now, in summer 2013, I was at university, just about to go into the third and final year. I felt back in my head, niggling feeling, this isn't quite me. I'm not really a follower. I'm not really, doing the labour and the work and the grunt. I was studying essentially technical art, and I wasn't overly artistic, but I realised that I'm more of a leader. I'm more of a pioneer. I'm more of a general as opposed to someone behind the scenes, and I felt that. And I looking back in hindsight, perhaps that's the golden mean, essentially saying I'm not really this. My equilibrium is here, but here, to other people, that could be over there, or it could be over here. But this was my perfect me, and I think every now and then in your life, no matter how old you are, but it happens more so when you're younger, and or you don't know who you want to be or who you are, every now and then you will you will have like moments of majority of time will be mediocre, but there'll come like a flash of inspiration where you achieve the perfect you, even if it's for a split second. But in relatively speaking, that flash of inspiration could be you today on a bad day. But back then it was like this where I want to be, because I also remember thinking in 2012. Mid-2012, I remember thinking to myself that this is at the start of university. I knew nothing about all the stuff I'm doing now and the stuff I'm talking about and all the rest. Knew nothing. And I said to myself, I'll be a great merchant. I use those words because I was reading some stuff back in the day. And what that meant was I would be someone great in business, someone great with money. Mm-hmm. And that was in hindsight, looking at it as a flash of inspiration where because you're not being distracted by work or deadlines or other commitments or whatever, you're able to sit and think, and as you think, your thoughts become actions or something like that, and you realise that I will be a great merchant, a great business person, and maybe self-fulfilling prophecy, maybe coincidence, I don't know, but that's what it's leading to today.
You're absolutely right, Adrian. But the thing about it is, some people are not allowed to even find that place because of social pressures. You know what I mean? Like you're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head. But I think I told you, I did mention about how when I said that I wanted to study psychology, and even though I didn't know what the heck I was talking about at the time, because I thought it had something to do with hypnosis, there are people who don't know what they're talking. Like there's, first generation African Americans because their parents were the descendant of slaves, they are the first ones to go to college. So they don't really know what to expect when they go to college. So they don't know what college degrees are about. So they don't know what they're going to study. So like I said, I studied psychology. So there are some things that so a lot of times people, when they go to college or when they go into some kind of trade, they go into the trade of their parents. And that's just something that it's because that's what they're surrounded by. So that's something that they learned. So that's something that they're more easily, they pick up easier because they know the lingo, they know the environment of that. They know they easily pick up the trade because they know how to easily adapt into that. As opposed to someone who's never been exposed to that, who's never been exposed to that at all. So that's just one of the factors that can affect a person's the ability to adapt into a specific trade. I only bring that up because to distinguish between what I'm trying to do in this particular demographic, because there's some demographics in which finding that sweet spot is not exactly correlated to finding that. I mean, you can find the mean and it'll be in you. It's in you. You're right. There is that golden mean where it's in you. It's there and it's begging to come out. But there'll be social pressures, there'll be environmental pressures, and it happens in all of us. Everyone has it. But it's like, they look differently for each and every one of us. What is keeping us from it? And that's what I'm trying to liberate out of people, is helping you to see that, we all need and deserve the luxury of expressing ourselves exactly how we were designed to be expressed. And this, whatever it is, because the thing about it is, like, even me, sure, I'm African, I'm Igbo, but if people who can't see my face would probably hear my voice and be like, you're African? Like my voice doesn't sound, I don't have one of those African accents, but I sound American, right? But at the same time, and so if I go to Africa now, they'll clearly be able to distinguish me because they're like, okay, she doesn't sound like one of us. So I should be able to express myself too in that environment. I've always been an outsider, even when I was in boarding school in Africa. So all these things are things that I seek to allow people to express themselves in whatever way. So I have that struggle too, even in the environments that I'm in, even when I'm in the hood or if I'm in Africa or if I'm in, so no matter what environment I'm in, I also have that need to express myself and express myself fully in every way. So that's the thing that I push for everybody. Because of my uniqueness, um, I have this strong desire to, like I said, rose from a concrete, to allow people and to encourage people to be liberated, to just express the fullness of themselves, and and that usually means in a very creative way, like taking your creativity and just creating something for the world. Um, for me, it's software or writing or things like that.
So, as a quick side note, when you say hypnosis, yeah, when I was at age 11 as well, probably earlier, I wanted to
Yeah.
learn a bit about that,
Yeah.
how it all works in psychology. I think that was, again, maybe the perfect me trying to speak out and say, I like psychology, I like the human brain, how it works, how it thinks, how it feels, because now I realise that once you understand how this brain works, you understand everyone in the world. You understand how all these things work and how it affects the way we interact. But you mentioned social
Absolutely.
pressure. You mentioned the social pressure. How is it you're going about liberating people from, from social pressure, or from not being the person who they are, or helping them be the person they want to be?
I think that one of the greatest tools to liberating social pressure is conversation. Um, I think that you'll be so surprised how, um, it's so undervalued and so underrated because people they're just like, oh, this makes me feel like you're making me be politically correct all the time. And it is for some people when they feel like they're being suppressed to talk. And I think I understand that. I definitely understand that. I definitely understand that. And I think that it's like one of those things where I always say that the great thing that when you're too hot, like I like being cold because when you're cold, you can put on covers. But when you're hot, there's nothing you can do. You can't you can't take off anything. You can't put on anything. It's just hot. When you can voice yourself, it's fine. But then when other people are talking and you can't speak, it's harder. I don't know whether that analogy makes sense, but um, essentially, like when other people are the ones talking, it's hard. But when you're the one talking, um, you feel better. But so what I'm saying is that sometimes when your voice is the one being heard, it's okay. It feels okay. So I use my YouTube channel, I use the books that I write, I use the talks that I do to really just be kind of like the voice of Africa. I try to create, and I'm also creating, I'm trying to create audiobooks and things like that in African languages. Hopefully with the success and the growth of my channel and my platform, I'll create more African language, media, um, African language media, encouraging Africans to create media in their own languages, to create, things that allow themselves to express themselves in their own languages. Because I feel like right now the pressure is towards um, expressing themselves in um, some of the more major business and scientific languages, because right now the language of business and the language of science is, oftentimes a European language like English. And it's just like, if you want to make money, you have to speak English. And understood, that's where the money is. But unfortunately, it comes with a lot of hardship as well, because you adapt into that socio ecosystem, and then you find out that you're unwanted. And that is a really hard realization for a lot of people. And and it's like you can't go back home at that point, because you're so different now, or there's a lot of pitfalls to the whole system and the way it is now. And so I really want to create a safe space for Africans to express themselves. Like, that's kind of like my life's mission statement right now, to create a safe space for Africans, if not only Igbos, because that's kind of the realm of my reach right now, because I'm Igbo and I have a good Igbo community around me. So my arm length is only the span of Igbos right now. So it's not a discriminating factor, but that's just my sphere of influence right now. That I'm kind of focusing on Igbos. But if I do have the opportunity to, other Igbos, other African communities may be liberated through what I'm doing as well, or if not just by the observation of what I'm doing, they may decide to start something of their own to help themselves. But that's kind of what I'm doing, is just creating media, creating opportunities, and being a voice. That's kind of the essence of how I see myself being being helpful.
So I'm very curious though, when you say being a voice, tell me about the books you've written and the talks that you give.
So the talk that I gave most recently was at the World Igbo Festival in Staunton, Virginia. And the specific talk that I gave was called More Than Just Kedu. And Kedu is a Igbo phrase that just means hello. And it means a lot of different things. It can mean hello, it can mean what, it can mean where, but it generally means hello. And the talk itself was just kind of calling out the next generation of Igbos, kind of telling them that you guys are dropping the ball. That the only thing, you guys aren't speaking the language. The only thing you know how to speak the only thing you guys currently know how to say is Kedu. And you guys are kind of just the way that they're currently living their lives is just kind of paying homage to something that's quickly getting watered down. And it's calling them out, but it was also giving them tools and telling them how they could what they could do to change the dynamic. So I told them that something that they could do would be, if they're doctors, they could go to Nigeria and give their time to some villages maybe once a year and volunteer, or take up some mentorship or apprenticeship roles with some Africans in back home, or do things like that. So I kind of gave them some practical advice as well. But essentially I was telling them that they don't have to let their culture slip away, that they can be, because they're in a unique position. And I was specifically speaking to Igbo people here in America, that they're in a unique position because they have the privilege of money and privilege to help people who in Nigeria are suffering from poverty and things like that, and lack of opportunity. They have that unique position. And so I was kind of challenging them to not just take it as take their position as opportunity to just say, oh yeah, I'm because I feel like a lot of Nigerians in America just take their Nigerianness as a way to kind of have the best of both worlds. They can say, well, I'm not really Black American, I'm Nigerian. But yet, what does that mean? You're not actually Nigerian. You don't actually do anything Nigerian. All you get to do is say, oh, you can't call me, I'm not ghetto, I'm not hood. That's all you get to say. But yet you don't really embrace your true heritage. You're not doing anything that's truly African. So, you don't really own, you don't have any entitlements, I don't think. So I was really just challenging them through that talk. That was one talk, and I think I'm scheduled to have another talk pretty soon. Right before this interview, I got a call for something. I'm supposed to have another talk. As far as books I've written, I haven't written any books specifically on this topic, but there is one in the works coming up now that you mention it, which is not really anything that's ready to be spoken of. So there will be a book Just put it that way.
That's all right. I've got a book on the way. It should be out by Christmas of this year, so you're not the only one. But but Udochi, what are you working on now, and what's next for you?
Well, glad that you asked. Currently I have quite a few things working on. I have a YouTube channel that I currently do. I'm doing a series called 101 African Business Ideas, where I pretty much just break down business ideas that kind of made the West and how Africans can adapt them to their own cultural environments. Like the first two I did were greeting cards. I was just pretty much saying, create greeting cards in Africa. Like anybody can do it. Just take a piece of cardboard and use African holidays and, not the typical, ones that Hallmark knows like Kwanzaa, but, specifically, New Yam Festival or something and make a greeting card company or, um, and the second video I think I did cartoons. I was like, do a, comic strip. So anybody could just draw there are a lot of artists. Anybody could be an artist, make a comic strip in Africa. And so I kind of just putting out kind of challenges. So it's called 101 African Business Ideas. And so I only did two. I'm on the third one now. I think the next one's going to be a dictionary because I think that a lot of us are just doing dictionaries that translate our language into other languages. And we're not really doing just straight up. Like if you look at an English dictionary, it's English words translated with English. You see the word dog and it will say a four-legged canine with, you know what I mean? But if you see an African word, the African word for dog, they'll say the translation is dog. And so, why are we translating African to English? Why don't we have African words that are translated into, and I haven't seen it. So maybe it's out there. They say the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. So maybe I just haven't seen it, but I'm going to actually make that video today. So there's going to be other ones, but they're pretty much simple ideas that I'm just kind of encouraging people to, just start your own business and make it and lean it towards an African slant. So that's one. The second thing is I want to translate. I want to do a bunch of audio books in African languages that I'll give away for free. So I want to do a series of books, which the African language versions, which will be all audio books because there is an illiteracy epidemic in Africa. That is both for their own language and for European languages. So I think because of the issue, because you do see very intelligent Africans when you leave Africa, because it takes a very intelligent African to actually survive outside of Africa. But when you're in Africa, there is an issue where it's like you're still intelligent, but the issue is you don't really need to be as fluent in speaking in writing and reading in the same way as you would if you were in, say, Europe or Germany, Spain, England, America. So being able to write an essay on whatever in your own native language or in English or in German, is not as essential. So audiobooks are probably better for Africans. So what I would probably do is were that I to publish books specifically for Africans, they would probably be predominantly in the audiobook format. So I want to do that. Have a line of audiobooks specifically in African languages.
All right, cool. That's some pretty cool, exciting things there. But as we begin to wrap up the podcast, what is the best way for the audience to get in touch with you?
Currently, I do have a website. It's called wudo.com. That is Ennis and Nancy, WUD as in Dorothy, O.com.
No other social medias at all, or just?
Oh, I do.
Just
So, my Instagram is The Real Wudo, The Real, THE, Real, REAL, Wudo, just the same way I spelled the website's name. And then my YouTube is also Wudo, and my Twitter is Igbo, which is spelled IGBO. B is in boy, O. Igbo Swag, SWAG. That's Igbo Swag. That's my Twitter. I think that's all.
Wow,
Twitter.
that's pretty cool. That's plenty. I'll add those in the link in the description below. I'll add the link, that will. So, Udochi, it was great having you on the show.
Thank you. It's great being on your show.
Yeah, some really cool conversations there, some really cool things. But, ladies and gentlemen at home, if you haven't already, click on the subscribe button below, if you're on YouTube, of course, and press the bell notification right next to it. If you're watching this on Steam, however, give me an upvote and follow, because there are plenty more content, plenty more videos on the horizon. There's plenty more to come. Because the vision, the mission, as well as the vision, is to help 1 million entrepreneurs become remarkable. So go out there today and do something remarkable. How cool is that?